This is a 2014 Chevy Silverado from Copart that sold for a $125 bid. This is the engine from it, and this is an idiot who thought that this whole thing was a good idea. I spent the last week or two removing this engine, disassembling it to very dirty pieces, cleaning them, replacing them, and finally putting them in their rightful place. Both front and rear main seals, oil pump, timing chain, upper and lower oil pan gaskets, not to mention the camshaft, had all been replaced. And now, without further ado, I think we're ready to install the engine. I could be wrong because I'm very frequently wrong, but as far as I can see, it's ready to go in. We are going to follow a pretty similar procedure in terms of putting it back in to how we took it out. So the heads are going to stay off. We're going to put those on after the engine is bolted down to the car, and then we'll just keep assembling everything on top because otherwise we're not going to be able to get the exhaust manifolds on properly and stuff like that. So I think this is our best option. The block is going to go in first, and then everything else gets put on top of that. Boy, I really hope I didn't miss anything, because if I have to pull this out again, I'm going to cry. Which I have been like every day ever since getting this truck.
My own world of make-believe.
Now, for those of you who have seen the previous video, you might remember that I damaged our old radiator, and I intentionally am leaving that in place because that's currently protecting the rest of the cooling system in front of the radiator from me smacking it with the engine. So the old radiator is still there. We don't care if it gets hit anymore. It's already damaged from when I was pulling out the engine. Please. There we go. Whew. Okay. All right, after a few hours of work, the engine is in place. It is properly mounted. The bolts are tightened down. All I have left to do is just reassemble everything. I think we're gonna start with our AC compressor, the bracket for the alternator. Hopefully I didn't break anything putting the engine in, because that was a little brutal. It wasn't easy because the engine hoist is just not long enough for this truck.
Take my eyes open to force reality. Why can't you just let me eat my weight in glee?
We shouldn't put the head bolts in just yet because we need to check whether any liquids got inside of our bolt holes. And we're gonna use today's sponsor, DXZtoz scope camera, to check what's going on inside of those bolt holes. So what's really cool about this thing is that it has a camera facing forwards as well as off to the side. So we actually can do a split screen and view different angles at the same time. Or you can just switch to one or the other, like with a traditional scope where this is the camera we're using, or the side camera right over here. Now we are able to adjust the brightness of our LEDs. We can turn it on or off and make it brighter there's 5 separate levels for how bright this light is. We have a thumb control, which allows us to articulate the end here. All right, luckily this one is looking dry, so we can actually snap a picture. What about on the other side? Look at that, we do have some coolant in there, so that is definitely something that needs to be addressed before we start sticking things in there. We do need to check every single hole, and this tool just makes it so much easier. Not to mention, this is incredibly useful for checking out the condition of your cylinder walls, valves, pistons, anything inside the combustion chamber through the spark plug hole. I mean, the quality is great. I can easily tell exactly what I'm looking at. And here are some of the functions that you end up getting with this thing. So obviously we have the button to switch between different cameras. We can zoom in and out. We can also freeze frame a video instead of taking a picture. We can take a picture with the back trigger over here. So if any of you think that this might be beneficial to your shop and or garage, feel free to go into the description and click on the link I put down there to purchase one of your own. And now comes the most nerve-wracking part, and that is torquing our head bolts. All right, so that was our first pass with 59 foot-pounds. We need to do a pass of 90 degrees and then a pass of 60 degrees. That generally turned out to be much easier than anticipated because I generally expected to have to weld this. I have been putting a little bit of fogging oil onto our cylinder walls because after all the cleaning that I've done to these heads and the block, I feel like we got rid of a lot of lubrication. So I would rather preserve our piston rings, and this is exactly what this fogging oil is meant for. You're meant to spray this into your spark plug holes on cars that have sat for too long and might have some rust buildup on the combustion chamber, aka the cylinder walls. Now I already got rid of all that coolant in one of our bolt holes, so that is no longer an issue. Fun fact, when I was installing the other head, I almost forgot to put our head gasket. That would have been a really bad day. Luckily Volvo was around as I was doing that. Ugh. That was rough. Okay. Oh boy. Now, for whatever reason, our rocker covers came with both the gasket and RTV on them. Usually that doesn't happen. Usually from factory, you'll always have either RTV or a gasket, but here we have both, which probably is because somebody has put RTV on this at some point when installing it. I am going to need brand new brass brushes after this one project. This was absolutely brutal on everything I have.
This is gonna take a while. I'll get back to you later.
All right, you guys, it is bright and early on this beautiful Monday morning. And yes, the winter is here because the shop is currently at like 40 something degrees. Outside it's 23 degrees and we're waiting for the heat to do its thing. But today is a very exciting day, probably, if all goes well. Because our ECU should be delivered like within the next couple of hours. And overall, the truck is almost just this close to being ready to start. On top of that, I had gotten us a new wheel bearing for that right front wheel because that is quite wobbly. It could be ready to be driven today. Obviously, it's not going to look great. I can throw a headlight in, but it's still going to be something. It's going to be. As you saw, we had gotten all the accessories on. The belts are now on. Intake manifold on. Valve covers on. All of the electrical components are plugged in. And we got our bad radiator out, which I destroyed when pulling the engine out. We have to put a new radiator in. We need to mount up our fans. And then little things like air box, and then one of the bigger projects is going to be our exhaust. You might remember that I inherited some issues with the exhaust from the previous owner. One of which being the fact that the catalytic converters cut out, the second one being the fact that the resonators cut out, and both of those are just replaced with a welded in pipe. Meaning that there's nowhere to unclamp the exhaust, it's all one piece. Which was an issue for me on multiple occasions, especially when I dropped a socket into the exhaust and had to get it out by cutting the exhaust, and it's been an issue. So basically we have multiple cuts in the exhaust and that has to be either welded or clamped. Not all of the connections can be clamped because not all of the exhaust is perfectly round. So down here, let's see, what do we have left? Obviously, this exhaust, that needs to be welded up because this is not a perfect round. I can't just throw a clamp on here. Okay, the day kind of got away from me yesterday, so I never even got around to actually starting this thing. We did address all of our issues except for the two plugs. So we have one extra wire over here and one missing connector over there, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I think we're ready to start. Apart from those two connectors, I don't think we need anything else. And we can at the very least see, well, actually no, I almost made a massive mistake. We need to fill the oil. I'm not gonna worry about the coolant because who knows whether this actually ends up running or not. Could be a million issues that we're gonna deal with once we try to fire this up. So filling the coolant isn't necessary this time. I did buy enough oil for 2 oil changes because I think we're going to change this oil out very quickly after putting it in, because this is basically what's going to be used to get out any kind of debris that may have gotten into the engine when we had it apart. Okay, to say that I'm terrified to start this would be an understatement. I am so scared. I mean, if this goes wrong, I genuinely do not know what I'm gonna do with this truck. At this point, I have $7,000 into it. $7,000 after buying it for like not even $500. Okay, guys, so let's. I'm terrified. Let's give this a shot. Okay, we do have power, so hopefully that is enough. Okay, the fuel pump relay is number 59, 59, 59, 59. There we go. Top left over here. Got this guy out. This is gonna shut off fuel to the car, so we'll be able to crank the engine with just a starter without actually starting it. I'm hoping that's enough of building up oil pressure, so let's just pop that relay back in. It's gonna take a little while for it to build up the fuel pressure. Okay. We are running. We do have a check engine light, but we're not knocking. And that is great. I honestly don't even think we're misfiring. And our check engine light is not flashing. So that means that we've successfully fixed our misfire. Obviously we have those two little sensors that are yet to be plugged in. Almost forgot that we have no coolant in the truck, but I mean, it runs. We don't have oil dumping everywhere. That's also great. So some progress was made. At the very least, the truck should be able to drive out of the shop on its own, which is already a huge bonus. I'll call that a W for now. So let's read the codes, let's fill the coolant, go from there. Heated O2 sensor, engine oil pressure sensor, and knock sensor for bank 1. So the knock sensor on bank 1, I'm pretty sure is this connector here. So all we have to do is figure out where the heck the plug for it went. It should be somewhere up here. And I don't know why it got lost, but well, I do know why it got lost, because we pulled the engine out and moved pretty much everything in this engine bay, but it'll take some searching to find it. The oil pressure sensor, I don't know. I mean, I would think that the plug that we have on this side is what we're looking for, but based on my research, the oil pressure sensor isn't even on this side. Okay, I finally figured out our wiring situation. So as it turns out, I just managed to take this wiring loom with our knock sensor connector and try to bring it to our passenger side when it should have been on the driver's side, going right to our knock sensor all the way in the back there. So this is good, and the only other significant code I'm dealing with is the oil pressure sensor, which should be up top. Unfortunately, I did end up running into an issue with this bolt. It got stripped. So I currently have a bolt extractor on it. I'm hoping that that's going to be sufficient. This is just a really awkward angle. Well, actually, if I just turn the steering wheel to the right, I think that's going to give us better access. Oh yeah, I really should have done this from the start. This gives much better playroom here. Come on. That is properly seized up. right here is our oil pressure sensor plug, and as you can see, this guy just pulled out, so some sort of a internal failure of our connector here. Might have to take this thing fully apart or come up with something else. Not ideal to drive around without an oil pressure gauge, but I mean, might have to suffice for now, because obviously we're gonna have to buy a connector like this. All right, so the coolant is topped off, the oil is filled, the new wheel bearing is installed, the hood is installed. I have been waiting for this moment for the last like 8 months. All right, we desperately need fuel. I'm not even sure we're gonna make it to the gas station, but we're not misfiring. I mean, that is awesome. But first, we're gonna install our Mangold dash cam made specifically for this truck. If you're not familiar, Mangold sells dash cameras made to fit right behind your rearview mirror to make it as unnoticeable as possible. There are no screens, only 2 buttons, and simply a few small wires running into the headliner. Unfortunately, this particular Silverado did not come with the auto dimming feature for our rearview mirror, meaning that we can't just tap into the sensors for that, and we have to get our power from the OBD port. Mount up our mounting plate, and then the camera just simply pops into that and clip it in, just like that. Perfect. Now, something I find pretty cool on the actual power adapter into our OBD port is the fact that it does have 2 modes. So there's a tiny little switch over here that allows you to switch between whether you want the camera to work 24 hours or only when the car is in accessory mode. And now that this thing is fully installed, you can kind of get a decent idea of what the camera footage looks like. And you can compare it to the iPhone 15 Pro footage shown here. So thank you to Mangold for sending this guy over and for holding on for many months for me to actually get this thing running again so that I can make this video and promotion. So if you guys are in the market for a dash cam and don't want one that will really obscure your vision and just get in the way of everything in the windshield, please check out Mangold and see if they have a camera made for your truck or car. Now, I'm not gonna get too ambitious and put a whole tank of gas into it, but we definitely need to fill up. So let's go do that. Our AC works still. That's perfect. The dimensions of this truck are just something I'm so not used to. This thing is massive. Oh my God, this thing is so huge. But the shifts are great. So before, to those of you who don't know, this thing was shifting really rough, because apparently these things shift really rough when they're misfiring. And that was one of the reasons why I thought we had a completely blown transmission. Now, I still think that we had issues with our transmission. I think that was unrelated to this, and now the shifts are perfect. And I mean, apart from a pretty bad wheel alignment and some exhaust leaks, I mean, it drives properly now, which is more than I expected it to do after tearing apart the engine completely. Let's floor it and see what happens. I mean, it did what it's supposed to do, I think. No harsh shifts, no misfires, no rods being thrown through the block, so not so far anyway. The exhaust is definitely gonna need some more work. This thing doesn't sound awesome. But we have made some progress, and I'm okay with that. As long as I get to take a little break from working on this truck, honestly, I'm okay with this, because I need it out of the shop. I need to work on other things, and I just wanted to know that I can put this engine back together and have it run. So that mission has been successfully achieved, and we can carry on to bigger and better things. I'm so thankful to you for tuning into this, and I mean, it's gonna be a little while before we have an update on this car. I mean, we're gonna need to give it away to the body shop. We're gonna need to address any kind of other potential issues that this truck is going to develop. The body work is gonna be expensive, and yeah, so we're probably, I'm expecting around $3,000 to get the body on this truck fixed. So it's gonna be a tough pill to swallow. So all in, we're gonna be at like $10,000+ into this truck, which I don't know. I don't know about the worth of this, so let's talk about this. Some of you guys might know more about this than me, but I mean, Chevy Silverados of this year with this mileage on Facebook go for roughly like $12,000 to $14,000 in my area. It might be different for some of you in different areas, but out here people love Chevys, people love Silverados, and that's what they're going for. With the AFM being deleted, new camshaft and all new seals and lifters, and most importantly our transmission with a billet torque converter, I think we could get above 15 for this, but it would be a very specific buyer. I have no idea how that's gonna go. It's gonna take some digging around and some waiting. I do not expect this thing to sell fast, nor am I expecting this thing to go on sale yet, because like I said, there's still a lot to do, but I don't know, maybe in the end it's going to pay off. Although honestly, at this point, no matter how much this truck makes me, it's not gonna be enough. I mean, there's no way this thing is selling for anywhere above $20,000. And for it to be feasible for me to have done all this, I'd probably need a profit of at least 10 grand, because this was
Too much.
Anyway guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.